Let me know, Saints fans, who should be the next head coach of the Black and Gold. Get down in the comments section. We have a pretty good video for you today, but I'm curious who you want to be the next head honcho. Welcome into Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I am your host, Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for tuning into today's program. No matter where you are or how you're watching, we always appreciate the Who Dat Nation for making us a part of their day. ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler recently put out an article where he was discussing the latest news, rumors, buzz, everything in between with Dan Graziano. And he actually had a couple of tidbits, a few pieces of information around the New Orleans Saints and their possible future head coach. Here's what he said. This is all about Aaron Glenn, and he said the Saints hiring Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn makes sense. He's one of the most complete candidates, so I believe his chances to earn a head coaching job are very strong. Now, there are multiple ties to New Orleans, not just as a player, but as a coach as well. He was a defensive backs coach from 2016 to 2020 under Sean Payton. He was also a player in 2008. He played cornerback for the New Orleans Saints, and he did follow Dan Campbell over to the Motor City whenever Dan Campbell left the New Orleans Saints coaching staff to take over as the head coach for Detroit. He followed Dan Campbell and turned in the black and gold for some white and blue. Motor City blue, sky blue, whatever it is. He is now a Detroit Lion, and he has been stellar as the Lions defensive coordinator. And to be totally honest, I can understand and I can appreciate the idea of continuity. And at one point in time, I was all in on trying to to encourage continuity. At one point in time, I wanted continuity. I wanted to keep this thing moving, but I'm tired of it. I'm over continuity. If I hear that word again at all tied to the New Orleans Saints, I might lose my mind and have an all-time crash out. I mean, look what continuity has gotten us. Trying to keep something going that's clearly very dead in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era, look where it's led us. We have 5 wins. We have a top 10 pick. Not in the playoffs. 4 straight years missed. I'm over it. Continuity doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Not anymore. None of those players that were around when Drew Brees was around, very few of those guys are still here. And I just don't think it makes any sense for the New Orleans Saints to try and encourage and continue this idea of continuity that clearly isn't working. But Jeremy Fowler did add, the Saints have valued consistency over the past 2 decades of mostly successful football. Glenn has been a part of that as a Sean Payton disciple. And New Orleans means a lot to Detroit coach Dan Campbell, who is also from the Payton tree. And in terms of Aaron Glenn and him improving parts of the roster, I mean, the defense is a massive problem. And at one point in time, if you hop back in your time machine a few years ago, the defense, and for an extensive period of time, outside of a couple handful of seasons here and there, the defense is what kept the team alive and what was really the bread and butter of the team. And especially in the post-Drew Brees era. The defense is what kept the New Orleans Saints afloat and competitive. But, I mean, now this team is just full of struggles. This team is full of problems, issues, trials, tribulations, and sure, injuries are a key factor of all of it, but, I mean, this defense is terrible. They cannot stop the run. They cannot get a lot of sacks. I'll give them credit. They don't necessarily lack pressures. They have 2 guys that are very, very good in terms of getting a lot of pressures, and Chase Young and Carl Granderson. Both of them are at the top of the league in getting pressures, but neither of them are at the top of the league in getting sacks. You don't have a true cornerback 1. Paulson Adebo, he's a free agent. Alontae Taylor has not stepped up. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a rookie. Marshawn Lattimore, he's wearing different colors. He's wearing a different helmet. So you don't have a true cornerback 1. There's also massive concerns around the depth. When you have your high-end talent and you have your top-end talent get hurt, who in the hell is taking over? The players that take over are not good. And I'm frankly tired of inconsistent football. I miss the days where the New Orleans Saints could have 1 good quarter and that wasn't it. I miss those days when the New Orleans Saints defense were tone setters. I miss the days where the New Orleans Saints defense was feared and respected across the entire league. And, there's a lot of problems with the New Orleans Saints, defensively especially, but offensively too. There's a lot of issues with the offense. So, my concern is if Aaron Glenn does get hired as the head coach, who in the hell is going to be the play caller offensively? Who's going to be running it back? Who's the OC? I don't know. That's why we have to get to this next point of would Aaron Glenn actually be a good hire? We're going to break it down. I'm going to give you my full thoughts. I'm going to give you everything you need to know around this topic. And then, of course, some stats and some information to back all of that up. And I want to just say thank you to everyone over the course of 2024 who has made this year super special. We are now in 2025. It's been a crazy year already. We're only 2-3 days into this whole mess. But, hey, I just want to say to everyone in 2024 who made this year special, I highly just appreciate you. And if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Daily Saints videos, breaking news, watch parties. We have free content. We go live during the free agency. We'll go live during the draft. We go live every single week. And we're already almost at 40,000 members of our Golden Gang. So hit that sub button and lock us in if you haven't already. Really quick, also got to give a big-time shout-out to Tushy, today's presenting sponsor. It is the best bidet you can get across the world. Now, finally, a resolution that isn't a pain in the ass. Tushy bidets fit on your toilet in under 10 minutes, improving your health and saving you time and money every time you flush the toilet. I love my Tushy bidet, and I use it every single day, sometimes, honestly, a few times a day. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. Installation is simple, and it takes about 10 minutes to complete. Literally anyone can do it. It's also so easy to use. All you got to do is just sit down, do your business, and then turn the knob for a refreshing stream of clean water. Once you're done, simply pat dry and with toilet paper. And fun fact, those who make the switch to Tushy save a lot of money, save up to 80% on their toilet paper fund. So that's pretty good news if you ask me. So instantly improve your health from the bottom up for a limited time. Our listeners get 10% off their first bidet when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT to keep that hiney shiny. All the information is in the comments and description of this video. I really appreciate everyone who supports the show, and I appreciate everyone who's keeping those bathrooms clean. Check out Tushy. Hit the link in the comments. Alrighty, so would Aaron Glenn be a good hire? To be totally honest, probably. He'd probably be fine. Probably be all right. Like, I don't think he would be the worst hire in this coaching cycle. I don't think he'd be the best hire in this coaching cycle. But the thing is, if you do hire Aaron Glenn, defensively, you might have a lot of problems eventually get figured out. But you still have the problem of the offensive side of things. So he's going to have to bring in a good offensive staff. And, the Lions are in a really good situation having Ben Johnson. And he's the most coveted guy in this entire head coaching carousel. And when it comes down to whether or not the Saints can get a good staff, that's going to come down to how good of a recruiter Aaron Glenn is. I feel like a lot of those guys in Detroit are going to follow Ben Johnson offensively. Defensively, you might be able to land a few guys. But, this is a tale of two entirely different defenses. One of them is top 10 in opponents' points per game. One of them is really good in the red zone. Both of them are the exact same in the red zone. But both also give up a lot of yards per play and per game. The big difference between the Lions and the Saints, they both give up a lot of yards. But third down, that's a big, big thing for me. The Lions are great. They are the number one team on third down. The Saints are in the bottom half of the league. Opponents' points per game, sure, they bend, but they do not break. That is apparent in the third down percentage, that is apparent in the red zone percentage, and that is apparent in the points per game. Aaron Glenn has done a phenomenal job of managing this defense. All the numbers you just saw, especially considering all of the injuries that team is facing. I mean, you're out some of your top-tier defensive talent right now because of injuries due to placing these guys on IR. And going into Week 18 right now, as it stands on Thursday, January 2nd, when I'm filming this video, the Lions have 13 defensive players on the injured reserve list. That is unbelievable. 13 defensive players on the injured reserve list, just to name a few of them. Here's a couple. Aiden Hutchinson, Alex Anzalone, who we all know and love, Malcolm Rodriguez, one of my favorite linebackers across the league, Carlton Davis, Ennis Rakestraw, both would be starting corners right now. You also got Mekhi Wingo and David Bada as defensive tackles. Marcus Davenport, who's shocker, he's on IR. Derek Barnes, Khalil Dorsey, and a hell of a lot more players on IR. And so, when it comes down to the defensive side, Aaron Glenn did a really good job of managing the injuries and still having a good defense. So again, I'm going to go back to the offensive coordinator side of things. I think Kubiak was solid. I think that he was good. I don't think he was great, but I think he was fine. Do I want to see more? Absolutely. Do I think there's room for improvement? 100%. When the Saints offense takes the field, they are by no means striking the fear of God into anybody. They don't score a lot of points. They don't get a lot of yards. They also aren't very good on third down or in the red zone. This is not a team that people fear and respect. This is a team that people laugh at and people, quite frankly, just disregard. And again, injuries have been a key factor for the New Orleans Saints. I wonder what could have been with this season. What happened if we didn't have this entire year get absolutely derailed by injuries? What happened after those first 2 weeks if the Saints could have pulled off a win against the Eagles? What would have happened had the Saints not effed around, Rashid Shaheed not dropped a punt, and they beat the Falcons early in the season? What would have happened had they won any of those games over the 7-game losing streak? What would have happened if the New Orleans Saints were not the second most injured team in terms of the impact of the players injured lost? The New Orleans Saints in total points missed due to injury. The Lions are number 1. The Saints are number 2. I think that's a massive testament to how good of a roster and how good of a coaching staff the Lions have. They can still go through a lot of injuries and be one of the top teams in the league. Whereas the New Orleans Saints, they deal with injuries and they plummet to the bottom. It's not an excuse. It's not a pass of, oh my goodness, it's A-okay, they were injured. But when you're the second most injured team in the entire National Football League, most of those being starters, most of those players having very limited snaps across the entire season, it makes a difference. And so, again, I go back to Clint Kubiak and I say, it was fine, but I want to see more. I genuinely want to see more. So if you go with Aaron Glenn, I went ahead and did the homework for us. 5 offensive coordinators that the New Orleans Saints could hire if you want to hire Aaron Glenn as the head coach. Clint Kubiak, I do think that giving him a second year would be beneficial because it's hard to implement an entirely new offensive system, especially when you've had the same one since, 2004, 2005, the Bush administration, when Pete Carmichael was the OC, and he was it takes a minute. It's okay. You also didn't have your starting quarterback. That's okay. You also were down your top 4 or 5 wide receivers. That's okay. It's okay. I think Kubiak was fine. I'd like to see more from Kubiak. I also would like to see a little bit from Josh McCown, the quarterback's coach over in Minnesota. That offense is flying. He has been very good. I like the idea of a player to coach transition. Josh McCown is a name that I want to keep an eye on. Kevin Patullo, Scotty Montgomery, and Chris Hewitt are also names to keep an eye out for. I think that all of these guys have quality offenses. I think all of these guys have done a good job in their respective roles. And I think that when it comes down to it, having a guy like one of these men come in and be your offensive play caller, plus Aaron Glenn be your defensive mind, your defensive play caller, I think that can make a big, big difference. But, Captain Obvious here. The Saints need a better roster. You can hire whoever the hell you want to be your head coach. If you don't have a roster that's worth a shit, doesn't matter. If your roster can't compete, it does not matter. If your roster isn't fired up, it doesn't matter. If your roster is hurt all the time and you don't have talent, and you don't have depth, it doesn't matter. You have to have an improved roster. So nail the draft, nail free agency, and whoever the head coach is, just do something right. The ceiling and where the expectations are, not that high. Because we just dealt with the incompetence in Dennis Allen. Like, just come in and do something a little bit better. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm praying. But, all right, I'm just play the hypothetical game. POV. Aaron Glenn was just hired to be the new Saints head coach. What's your reaction? What are you doing? Close your eyes. Just picture it in your head. Aaron Glenn, you see the push notification come across your phone from ESPN, or because you're subscribed here, we're going live. Aaron Glenn got hired. What are you thinking? Are you thinking, damn it, I love it? Are you thinking, damn it, I hate it? Are you thinking, who the hell else was an option? Are you thinking, who's going to be the OC? I want to know. What are your thoughts? What's your reaction if Aaron Glenn just got hired? Saints fans, enjoy your weekend. Y'all stay golden. We will see you next time.